Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know for sure, but we were being held at that point in kind of a general population, just by no means a comfortable place, but a significant upgrade from the first month in solitary confinement, no doubt. And my guess would be that if he would have been caught, he would have been sent, backwards to somewhere that's not nearly as comfortable.
Did you at any point in time think to yourself or maybe hold out hope that there might be some kind of rescue operation that gets launched?
Especially in the first month, I passed time by doing lots of things, and one of those things was to just dream up these crazy things that I thought might happen, ways that I might get out. And so I envisioned the cell door swinging open and the SEALs coming in and showing me an American flag on their sleeve or something like that. I was thinking about the names of like my first pet and my teachers in grade school, because I've heard or seen in movies where they have a question that they ask to basically verify that they have the right person. And I mean, I imagine a tunnel being carved into the cell and Gal Gadot coming in. I mean, it just anything that could pass time. So, but I did. I mean, my godfather was in the Navy, and so I imagined, him bringing a ship into the Mediterranean and them coming in by chopper and taking me out. Truly, just anything. In solitary confinement, there's a lot of time, so start to think about all of these things that could happen. And I did dream up these crazy scenarios, partly to maintain hope, and on the other hand, partly um to just pass time.
And the reason I ask that is because, as the viewers of this show know, at this point in time, when you've been taken in Syria, there are military assets all over Syria of the United States of America. And to me, one of the first option I would think, and maybe not, is, hey, do we have guys close enough to where we can just fly in the middle of the night, grab them, and leave? Because they conduct missions like that all the time over there. So that's frustrating for me, is just the guy who's learning your story, to be, was that, I want to know, was that ever considered? Was it planned?
So I think that if the case would have gone on longer, I think the chance of that would have potentially become more likely. But I don't know for sure. But I think if it would have gone on longer, then that could have happened.
So I want to get into the part now where it's literally like out of a Tom Clancy film when you finally get, well, real quick, the phone. So there was a phone in the jail, right? But you could only use Arabic and you could only call within Syria, which made that phone kind of absolutely useless to you, right? So how did that, but you kind of got creative. So can you walk the audience through the phone that you were allowed to use?
Yeah. So after the I sent the letter out and didn't hear anything back, I was trying other ways to communicate. And what I realized was that there was this phone that was passed around amongst the cells, and inmates could make phone calls occasionally. But I learned there were two rules with the call. Any conversation on the phone had to be in Arabic, and all calls had to be made within Syria. So it became kind of useless to me, or I thought it seemed that way. But I thought about it a little bit more, and I ended up approaching another inmate of mine who became a friend. And I do want to mention these other inmates in a second because they're truly incredible people. But I asked him if he could just call someone and then have that person communicate to someone else. Like this should work, right? So long story short, put this plan together where he called his turned out to be his sister who was in Damascus, and then his sister sent my sister a message on Instagram. And it turned out to be this my sister Stephanie, so the same sister who had actually connected with her college roommate. But one of the challenges that I had was I needed to give this guy the exact Instagram handle of my of who I wanted her to send a message to. And how many Instagram handles can you actually remember? Like exactly. There aren't that many, right? We just go to them. So I was going down the list of like my family members trying to think, and it got to my sister Stephanie, and I knew exactly what it was. So I gave that information, and he called his sister, and then his sister messaged Stephanie, and Stephanie tells the story of receiving this random Instagram message saying that her brother was in prison with my, with Steph's brother. So it became it became another line of communication that I managed to establish. And my family tells the story that the FBI was kind of blown away by this, that there was communication coming from me in that situation, but managed to communicate in another way there and establish just a little bit of communication thanks to the help again of these strangers.
Did you ever, once you eventually get out, did you ever find out what happened to the guys that you were in with?
So today, over the past few years, several of them have also been released, and I'm now in touch with all of them. We exchanged information. We're in touch. Some of them are still in Syria. Some of them have fled to Lebanon and Turkey or into Europe, and they're truly these incredible people. I'll never forget. I'm about 2 weeks into that second month, about the same time that the letter was being sent out. I said to a guy I had met, I said, hey, everybody here is being so nice to me. It was kind of hard to know what to expect in a situation like this. And I'll never forget, he said, Sam, in Syria, all the good people are here in prison because all the bad people are outside putting us in here. And it was a very sobering comment to hear from a geopolitical standpoint and everything that's happening. And one of the challenges I'll mention, one of the challenges that I think I have with my story is just the way that I portray the country of Syria, because this is a place that is one of the most culturally, religiously, historically significant places in the world. It's heartbreaking what's happened over the past now 13 years since the 14 years since the Arab Spring. And yes, there is an authoritarian regime that's causing all kinds of trouble, but underneath that, there are people just like us. And one of the most important things I learned through my travels is that the overwhelming majority of people are well intentioned, proud of their country, happy to help others. And that was what I found everywhere in the world, including in a Syrian prison with these other inmates who are now friends of mine today.
I love the fact you made that point because it actually echoes and mirrors what a lot of the military dudes I interview say exactly the same. They're out killing ISIS fighters, but the point they always make is like a lot of these people, just not ISIS fighters, but people that were under ISIS control or whatever it might be, they just wanted to live their lives. They want to take care of their kids and their family just like everyone else. And they just unfortunately got caught up in a situation where bad people got involved and now they're in a war that they never asked for, never wanted. That's very interesting that you on the civilian side have made essentially the same point that the military side would make. On that note of viewing the Syrian people, and then I want to get into how your eventual release.
Yeah.
Do you hold any ill will towards the Assad regime? Do you hold like anger towards what just the apparatus that allowed this to unfold, the show trials, the regime. How do you feel about all that stuff?
This was a really uncomfortable time for myself, for my family. It was a significant challenge, and I wouldn't want to relive captivity. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. One of the things that I focused very hard on and prayed a lot for while I was in captivity and still today is the I view the world through a spiritual lens, and I prayed very hard for the courage to forgive my captors. And through that, I discovered that I was working to forgive people who weren't even sorry. And that's strength. Forgiveness is not a feeling, it's a choice. On one hand, I would never want to relive captivity. On the other hand, having reflected on this and now speaking about it for a living, I I would also never want to give up everything that's come from it. the opportunity to meet some remarkable people, to grow in character and in faith, and really an understanding of the stuff in life that actually matters. And those two things go together, and that perspective is so important. And while Syria doesn't define me, it has become a part of who I am. And I expect the lessons that I learned, that my family learned through this experience, to stick with me in some shape or form for the rest of my life.